Okay, guys. So what we're going to look at today is you read a selection from Washington's farewell address, which I'm very proud of you for doing so. It is a very long, somewhat complicated document. I think, especially given that in this day and age, we don't speak and write the same way that he did way back in the day. One of the things that may not come very clear through that, because there was a whole lot of it, is that he really addresses 9 ideas or 9 topics. And I'm going to go through those very briefly and explain what his advice for America is. Now, the farewell address is not just Washington retiring from the presidency. It's Washington's advice for how America should act and behave to secure a successful future for itself. And one of the things that I'd really like you to think about is especially as we go through this year, and as you may see or hear stuff in the news, WWWD, what would Washington do? And that's kind of where this goes. So he makes 9 basic points, and this is sort of more or less the order they go in. Number one, value America and um, your position as an American over your state or local government. He makes a big point about how it's a danger to fall into regionalism. Well, I'm from the Midwest. This is what we do. What you people in the South do, I don't get it. Or, I'm from California or I'm from New York. And this is how we do things here because we just know better. It becomes a very tribalist mentality. And it's really important to remember that first and foremost, you have to place your position as an American citizen above anything else. You need to take pride in the fact that you are an American citizen and that you live in the greatest country in the world with the most freedoms and opportunities of anybody else in the world. This is why millions of people are struggling desperately to get in here, despite what people may say otherwise. When you begin to start looking at things of like, well, what happens to you people doesn't affect me or whatever else, is it becomes really quite dangerous. So we need to look at the totality of being an American. Similarly, violence against the government does not help anybody. So, you know, when you get so sick of what's going on that the only thing you think you can do is try to overthrow the government, that's probably not a good idea. It results in bad things happening. France, they whacked off the king's head and started wars with every other country in Europe because of violence. And this is what sort of he warns against. Don't try to deal with problems by being an extremist and becoming violent about it. Avoid political parties. Now, this actually feeds back into these other two. Political parties cause division. People will tend to favor their political party, sometimes even at the expense of the country. They will look at what's best for the party, what the party says is better maybe than what's in reality for better for America. Sometimes the parties may favor violence. Not a good idea. Parties exist to serve themselves. Parties can become corrupt. Parties can distract from the real issues that Americans have to face as a whole. And sometimes the way to deal with those issues that America is facing require you to disagree with the way that the party would approach it. This is why parties are bad. And this particular warning really is sort of a not so veiled warning to both Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton, the founders of the first two political parties in the country, that what they're about is really dangerous and we really should not be going there. So political parties are a recipe for disaster. They exist only to help the party out and the people within the party, by their nature, they become corrupt. The branches of the government need to be maintained separately. Do not attempt to combine power. The executive should not be making laws. The judicial should not be making laws. The legislative branch should not be trying to carry out the laws or interpret them. Each branch has its own power. They check each other and they balance each other, and they have separate functions and keep it that way. In order to keep laws fair for everybody and to keep things impartial for everybody and objective, you need religion and morality. Without religion and morality, laws will become unjust, they will become corrupt, they will follow the whims of parties, they will allow power to be unfairly and unlawfully used and distributed where it shouldn't be. Too much power becomes corrupt. And without religion and morality, people will have no sense of right and wrong or the ability to look at laws and go, yeah, that's good, that's bad. What they will look at is that good for me? Is it bad for me? In order for people to be like this, not only do you need religion and morality, you need people to be educated. Now, he is not speaking on behalf of public schooling as much as he is the idea that in order to make good choices, you really have to be well educated. It's kind of a warning that if you let the uneducated make choices, their choices will completely revolve around what they are being told or what is of immediate benefit to them without looking at the bigger picture. Avoid high government debt. Debt causes problems because it burdens people with taxes. The government then becomes far too willing to spend money it doesn't have, and you sort of push the obligation to pay it off on future generations, none of which are good. Okay, high taxes lead to problems, which may lead to violence, which will fuel the issues of political parties, which will cause people to become very disenchanted with the United States as a whole. Without religion and morality and education to sort of check the spending of government, it simply becomes a matter of why should I care because I'm not going to be the one paying for it. That's not right to sort of dump that responsibility on your kids or your grandkids or their kids and grandkids. You can't just keep pushing off debt on people. It doesn't do anybody any good. And eventually, you will become a slave to those debts. And you may compromise yourself because of those debts. Avoid alliances with foreign countries. The easiest way to look at this is be friendly with everybody, trade and do business with everybody, but stay neutral. Stay out of other people's business. Why? Because if you get too friendly with people, you're going to get sucked into their problems. You're going to end up paying for their wars. You are going to end up sending your sons to fight in their wars. You are going to end up sacrificing your economy's well-being for somebody else's economy's well-being. You have to put the country's interests above your own personal ones. And the more you get sort of entangled with foreign countries, the greater the chance for debt, political parties being exploited or corrupted by foreign influence, and beginning to sort of take this view that what's good for you is better than what's better for America because of the way you're dealing with foreign countries. It would be way too easy in Washington's view for us to look at foreign countries and think that we can take their money and they would become influential over what happens. And last but not least, it is the obligation or the job of the people to watch government prevent abuse. You cannot trust the government to watch itself. You must watch it and make sure that it's not doing anything. Why? Because political parties will only look out for themselves. Government will attempt to take power away from each other without restraint because political parties will see that as a benefit to themselves. And the more violence that you use to try to change things, the greater the chance of the government taking power away and lording it over you and becoming abusive. So it is the job of the people to watch the government and prevent abuses. So these are the 9 points. Value America above yourself, your state, or your locality. Violence does no good and it actually hurts people. Avoid political parties because they're problems. Keep the branches of government separate to maintain checks and balances and separation of powers. You cannot make good laws without religion and morality because that's what gives people a basis to judge things on and to also know right from wrong. You need to be educated to make correct choices. Dumb people should not vote or make choices. Avoid high debts because they will eventually cause problems and it's an unfair burden on future generations, as well as being a problem with taxes. Foreign alliances will alienate, cause problems, maybe indebt you to others, and drag you into foreign wars and bankrupt you. And ultimately, it's the people's job to watch the government prevent abuse, not political parties, not the government itself, but the people. Pretty easy squeezy lemon peasy. Peace and love.